my supervisor at the time was like, hey, I think you're going to have to stop doing that because it's a little bit too aligned to what you're doing in the city. And I was like, oh, so I'm just going to quit. And they were like, what? And I was like, yeah, so, I do this to fund this. So if I can't do the thing I'm funding that gives me joy and makes me proud and happy, then I'm just going to have to leave this
I'm
other
sure they
thing.
didn't see that coming.
Yeah, absolutely not.
Here, live from the Bronx Beer, the podcast and creative brand that celebrates Bronx creative and change makers. And I'm your boy KB.
Here, what's poppin', y'all? It's your boy Jay.
And today we have a very, very, very special episode. You might be wondering where we are. We are at the Bronx Beer Hall, right? And we are with the Ramirez Brothers, the owners and creators of the Bronx Beer Hall, Taste of the Bronx, Mainland Media, and From The Bronx. I think I got all four of them right.
Yes.
Gentlemen right here, all companies in the Bronx doing really dope stuff.
All day.
And we are excited to have them here. So we have, in order from right to left, we got Paul, we got Derek, and we got Anthony. How y'all feeling, brothers?
Chilling, baby.
Feeling good, man. Thanks for having us.
Tuesday or whatever day it is.
Yes,
today.
Tuesday.
It is Tuesday. I feel the same way.
Actually, Tuesday.
It's been a wild week. Holidays are upon us.
It's been a wild week, day 2.
Yep.
Most definitely. So just to make sure we get the best audio, just make sure y'all are talking loud into the mic, please.
Yes.
But we are excited to.
It's kind of sent to this. Right?
Yeah.
But we are super excited to get things started, and we want to hear all about who y'all are and what y'all have going on. So let's get it going.
Facts. Woo! So, before we even dive into all the dope work y'all are doing, all the brands Kevin mentioned, one of the things we like to do is learn about our guests, right? So the first question I'm going to ask you all is, who are you and how do you identify? And we're going to start with you, Anthony.
All right. How do I identify? I am Anthony Ramirez II, and I identify he, him, his.
I am Derek Ramirez, and I identified as he, him, his as well.
And again, if you want to get deeper than pronouns,
Yeah, I was gonna let Paul finish and then was gonna say that.
Yeah, because I was
gonna say, my name is Paul Ramirez. I identify as Boricua from the Bronx. I am he, him, his across the board. And first and foremost, we identify, I think, as Bronxites.
And I want to say, we do the pronouns because that's every Zoom meeting I've been in for the past 2 years now, right? So I want to make sure we know
when I hear
that's
what I think right away. When I hear identify now.
But absolutely, I think Paul nailed it. Brothers, Boricua, Bronx. 3 Bs.
So where'd y'all grow up? Where's home? Where in the Bronx did y'all grow up? Tell us a little bit about your childhood and upbringing.
So we're from the Bronx. Originally, we're born and raised in the South Bronx. First started out on 156th and St. Anne's, but most of our upbringing was over on Taylor Avenue between West Farms and Park Chester. So in the heart, what's still considered the South Boogie. Other people might say it's the East Bronx. I mean, there's all kinds of things.
It's like an in-between.
It depends on you talk to.
We're right in the heart of it, though. So, walking distance to Park Chester, but our zip code is West Farms entirely.
Right, so between the 6 train, the 2-5 line,
5 train,
multiple
all the buses. Too,
You can take the 44 right over the bridge into Queens, so we're close. We're BS.
Not far from the worst Macy's in New York, right?
Yes.
That Portchester Macy's was lit, man.
Yeah,
it was.
It was lit.
He worked there.
I worked there, and the summer of 2000. After my first year of college, and
Just talk a little.
it wasn't. I worked there. I was saying it was the summer of 2000, just after my first year of college, and that's when it definitely started going downhill.
Okay.
But we can talk about that later. We can talk about that later.
I used to be in Park Chester all the time, so that Macy's,
Yeah.
the American Theater.
American Theater. That's right.
We used to go to the American Theater for
all the time.
Pay for 1 movie, watch 4.
films
Yeah,
for the
2
price
for
of
1. Yeah.
So I guess, like Jay was saying, tell us about your upbringing, right? So y'all are business owners now with a bunch of multiple businesses.
Absolutely.
Was that always the dream? Was that what y'all wanted to do when y'all were younger?
Absolutely not.
Okay.
I think, and I can't speak for everyone, so I'll just say for me, when I was growing up, I really wanted to make money, right? And that's not, that's not an astronaut, that's not a firefighter, that's not, I wanted to grow up and be the type of person, type of family that didn't have to worry about money. And and we had a great child. I mean, listen, my dad has 6 brothers and sisters. My mom has 1 brother. We have 18 first cousins, maybe more now, right? Growing up, we all lived in the same block. right? So our uncles were across the street, we had uncles downstairs, we had uncles,
Next
aunts
door.
next door, all over the place. Our grandparents were there, so you'd go outside, and it was just,
Family.
Family everywhere, yeah.
and that was great. I wouldn't trade that for anything in the world. And I think that, that a lot of that community and that sense of family is what inspired us to do what we do today. But growing up, what did you want to do when you grew up? Well, I wanted to draw comic books at one point. I wanted to make video games at one point. But I knew that whatever it was, I would just never... Worrying about money was something I did not want to do. And, as we grew older and started businesses, I don't know what your families are like, but our parents were like, oh, you're going to be a lawyer, a doctor, or a businessman. I don't know what that means. Right? My cousin Christopher used to say, I want to be a bus driver. I want to drive the bus, right?
Yeah.
And they'd be like, no, you're not going to be a bus driver. You're going to be a doctor, a lawyer, or a businessman,
That wasn't
right?
on the list.
That's not on the list. We didn't say, right. Oh, so from there to where we got to the point of like, I'll take us on that journey in a little bit, but I don't think any of us kind of saw this as where we'd be in our 40s, for me anyway.
Yeah.
Right?
Don't even
I agree with that. I agree with that. I mean, you think about it, like our parents worked, my mom was very much, Board of Ed job, so, guaranteed weekends off, guaranteed summers off, vacations in the middle so she could spend her time with us, guaranteed pension, union job, union pay, health insurance, right? And that's something that they, that's how they were brought up to realize, like, hey, security is everything, right? And it's the job security, it's the health security, all that other stuff, right? And then as generations
We'd say
go
she
on,
was, because Dad
she
was a musician.
Right, she was. Yeah.
Or is a
She
musician,
was.
I should
She
say.
is
Sorry.
a musician, yeah.
Tony the piano player on Instagram.
And
Yeah,
stuff.
put some respect on
Honestly,
it.
exactly. But that's what she's like. Oh, this is how you got to guarantee your own stuff, right? So you got to secure your own position, and then you think like, oh, this is the route that I have to take, right? Or this is the kind of route, and then you're like, nah, this ain't the route that I want. You know what I mean? And like my background, we worked. I was a deputy director for a nonprofit for several years. I did after school programming, and like on that trajectory where it's like, oh, okay, I'm gonna have this job with this 401k, and I got health insurance, and then you're like, nah, I don't want none of this. I don't want none of this, right? Like, and how do you fix that?
You didn't want a 401k? I want one.
I still don't have one. So I don't even have anything built
I want
towards
a
a 401k.
401k.
Yeah,
I will say,
And you can create your own retirement
Right, of
fund,
course.
just
you
in
absolutely
Yeah,
can.
yeah.
But I will say one thing, and Paul and I are the older brothers, right? And there's a 10-year gap between me and Derek.
Yeah.
And Derek's the artist, right? So there's a little more leeway when the younger one comes along. I'll
Yeah.
let him talk about that.
I wanted to do 3D animation and visual
Derek,
effects.
if you could just talk up a little
Oh,
bit.
I wanted to do 3D animation and visual effects. I went to School of Visual Arts for that. First I went for comic booking, and then I switched over. And then now I'm doing graphic design for us, making the t-shirts and apparel and all this different kind of stuff. This is one of them right here. It's the sweater. But pins, the pin, yeah, all that
Which
stuff.
I need parts of
Yeah.
after this.
Pins are great.
got it, we got
we
you.
have some awesome pins, and yeah, it definitely changed. Cause I only started drawing because of him when I was little, because he used to draw so much, and
that's
then
something-
he didn't get to go to school for it, and I got to go to school for it pretty much. By the time it was on me, they started taking me to art classes and all kinds of stuff, and it changed the mentality of like, oh, artists can make money or whatever. It can change now.
Yeah, I remember saying that to Mom.
So
once.
my
I'd be like,
mom
I want to
didn't
be an
go-
artist. And she's
my
like,
mom was like, no.
ain't no money in that.
She's like, you're going to Columbia. You can't go to Columbia for art. Right away. And it was like, it's one of the best art schools. So it's different things,
So what was y'all relationship like as brothers, right? Like, obviously when you have siblings, you might fight here and there, but like, tell us a little bit about the brotherhood that y'all had, and like, were there times or
Have.
sorry,
Have.
Sorry,
I was
brotherhood-
like, I'm alive. I'm still here.
the brotherhood that you had.
Is something gonna happen when I leave?
and why it's so important.
Listen, we grew up in an apartment, right? We
Yeah.
weren't in a house. We weren't, we don't have a front yard, backyard type deal. We had a backyard space. It's all concrete. I remember
Concrete
showing that to a
backyard.
friend once. I'm like, oh, this is our backyard. And he's like, no, man, this is where people park their cars. It's not a backyard. And I'm like, oh, but we drive our bikes in a circle back here. This is cool.
Yeah,
backyard.
backyard.
This is where we have birthday parties, right? This is where we put the
Right.
grill, right? Like that's our backyard.
And he's like, oh, but do people move their cars before the birthday parties? And I'm like, yeah, that's not the point. This is
park
the
in the
backyard. So we had no choice but to get along, right? Because at the end of the day, you're sharing a room. You're all sharing a room. We had a bunk bed we had 3 beds in one room, right? We had one bunk bed and then a single bed. And, at first, I forget how the beds were set up. I think Paul and I shared the bunk.
Yeah.
Derek was
I
youngest.
was
He
in a
came
little
in, had
bed.
the side bed. Then I went to college, and they shared then they shared a bunk, and then they spread. I don't know how it happened. I don't remember.
Feels like I was gone.
The point, I was gone.
Yeah.
I know when I came back, I slept on the futon. But the point is that, we had no choice, right? My mother and my father made it a point that, whenever one person got something, don't forget your brother, don't forget so-and-so, right?
Love that.
100%.
Did you offer this to so? Oh, no, except for when it came to tostones, in which case, they're all mine, and I
Yeah,
licked
free
as
for
many
all.
as I could.
Yeah.
It's a free for all. There are no seconds in our house, right? So it's whatever you got.
Never any seconds.
So that was a bit, that's actually something that was important. And then again, like I said, we go outside, and our cousins and our family were all outside. So to us, it wasn't anything abnormal, right? You got in a fight with your brother, guess what? You're gonna make up soon because you share a room.
You can be mad. You can be mad for a half hour, and then it's back to regular conversation. Who you watching TV with? Who you playing games with? Right.
Right.
So like,
You have no
wanna
choice.
You want to do any of that stuff? You better make peace, and you better make it fast.
Yeah.
Jason, I know you said
Hold
there's
on,
a-
just real quick, a quick disclaimer. If you hear noise in the background, we are at the Bronx Beer Hall, right? So hopefully you can hear us, bear with us, and don't pay no mind. We're going to rock out.
We are in
That's
an
right.
80-year-old,
81-year-old.
81-year-old building. Those noises are growing pains, spirits, and pipes.
Pretty much.
They're here whether you want it or not.
We're gonna
100%.
talk about the location in a bit.
Yeah, definitely.
So, Anthony and Derek, I know y'all are 10 years apart, but what's the age gap between the two of y'all?
Seven.
No, you two.
Oh,
Between
me
you
and
and me, it's 2
Anthony?
years.
Yeah,
Two
me
and a
you
half.
said, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
2.5,
2.5. In
whatever.
school, 3 years, but in life and age, 2.5 years.
Okay.
That 2.5 makes a difference because otherwise it don't make sense. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I think you're like the same age too, right?
Don't do that.
No,
Don't do that. Don't do that.
no, but he's definitely,
So
we're
Jason
definitely
just
old.
turned 21. He's actually having his first beer on camera.
Oh, 21 with that beard? Oh my God!
That was good.
Oh, that's a good one.
That was good.
Shit, we forgot to ID y'all.
So I guess to kind of piggyback off what Jay was talking about in terms of the brotherhood, right? What is it like going into business with your brothers? What are some of the challenges? What are some of the things that go really well? What's it like?
Well, I mean, it's interesting because, you have a shared vision, right? And having a shared vision, sometimes, execution might be thought of in different ways, but like we still all have like it's like any about improvisation, right? Improvisation, like you got to get from point A to point B to point C, and like you're gonna finish the story, and however that story finishes in between, like that's up to y'all, right? But we know when we got to get to point A and to point B and to point C, and then sometimes it's easy to play off of one another, and other times like, wait, but I thought that this is how this was gonna end, and right, but either way we get there. You know what I mean? And like there's conversation, and there's always room for conversation, I mean, it's like any relationship.
I think there's a shorthand between people that have known each other their entire lives.
That's fair.
Right?
Yeah.
And so there's a time when, you already know, like, I know what Derek thinks is whack. I know what Derek thinks is cool. I know what he, I have a pretty good idea of his taste. Doesn't mean we have the exact same taste, but I have a good idea, right? Mm-hmm. And so when, for example, we're designing something and he's the creative director, he's the one really on top of the design. But when he brings something and we all look at it, before I even say anything, he's like, "Oh wait, you don't think this part is centered, or you don't
I
think
already,
this part's
I already
right?"
know what he's not gonna like.
And I'm like,
That's
"So
the
why'd you
most
bring it?"
Yeah, but it's like it's
He's like, "Oh,
called.
but I like it better this way," and then he'd be like explaining it, and we, that's how we work, right?
Yeah.
But that's the plus side. The downside is that sometimes, because there's a shorthand, you think you know each other so well, you forget that you did not communicate something you were supposed to communicate, and then you're like, and I ain't calling anyone's name out, I'm just saying. And then you're like,
All right, turn off the camera.
yo, we didn't talk about it. Oh no, but I did. All right. Right? So things like that. And I think that's where, that's the positive, but that's the negative.
So talk a little bit about your roles within all your businesses, right? Like I would imagine if you're the artist, right, Derek, you and the creative director, you're the creative director probably for all four brands, right?
Yes.
And that's probably an established role. What about both you, Anthony, and Paul? What are your roles?
So I'm gonna take a step back real quick and just explain the companies. They all have a similar mission, right? Which is to improve the image of the Bronx and
Yeah.
to share our rich history and culture with the world.
Yep.
right? That's how it started in 2006. It's a long time ago, right? And that's how it's remained since
You
then.
launched all brands in 2000.
We launched From The Bronx and Mainland Media in 2006.
Yes.
Mainland Media, named Mainland Media because the Bronx is the only borough on the mainland, right? Everything else is an island. Climate change is real, right?
Yep.
So when the floods come, we will have waterfront property. People will be swimming for the Bronx, right? and From The Bronx is positive Bronx themed merchandise. So FromTheBronx.com, that's the brand. We have everything from pins, t-shirts, hoodies, to slip mats, mugs, earrings that are coming out in 2 weeks, like bookmarks,
everything you can think. Books,
coloring
books, yeah.
you name it.
And these coloring books we made, I drew all the pages and everything and created too.
Yeah, absolutely. So, and there's a story now. We can go through the activity book in a little bit. There's a story there. Books coming soon. And then From The Bronx, with From The Bronx, we were doing pop-up shops in culturally significant locations throughout the borough. One of which ended up being where we're sitting right now, 11 years ago. It was the From The Bronx holiday pop-up at the Arthur Avenue Retail Market. There was an old deli counter behind us. We cleaned it out. We packaged all of our clothes like it was cuts of meat and things, and that's how we sold it during that event. And it was 30 days of Bronx celebration, right? The goal of not only introducing non-Bronxites to the Bronx, but reintroducing people in the Bronx to things within their own community. So the pop-up shop went really well. We had beer tastings and all this other stuff, and after one beer tasting, we were like, oh man, we should really have a beer hall here, right? And then we sobered up the next day, and we were like, oh, that's still a good idea. Maybe we should have a beer hall here, right? And the folks that run the market came to us and said, hey, we like what you did. We like the crowd that you brought. What would you do if you could stay here? And we proposed the beer hall. Hence, the Bronx Beer Hall was born, right? So we thought we'd be open in 2 months, and it took a year, right?
Yeah. Right.
As things do when you have no idea what you're doing because you've never owned a bar before.
Right, exactly. Exactly.
We're like, I'm really good at drinking at bars. Never ran one, right?
Yeah.
So it took a lot. It's not.
No, apparently it's not.
It's just a little bit harder.
You know how you want to be treated. Right? That's what you know, but you don't know how
Which
to
is
actually.
big though.
all
That is
stuff.
right customer service.
Huge, huge,
100%,
huge.
100%.
And so, From The Bronx, gave away to the Bronx Beer Hall. The Bronx Beer Hall, we'll be 10 years in February. Opened as the premier craft beer destination in the Bronx at a time when there weren't, there were a good amount of breweries, but there weren't thousands of breweries like there are now, right? And we really focused on New York State and local. Again, our mission has always been local. But it wasn't just beer. It was first and foremost, a community gathering space. So our focus was huge tables where you're forced to sit next to strangers, events where we were inviting not only locals that live in the neighborhood, but kids from the Fordham University students, and really mixing everyone that's in this community because we all have to play a different part. Knock on wood, but we've been doing pretty good. I'm just gonna mess up the mic. I'm knocking on wood. And so then, just to fast forward, and I don't want to, I've been talking a lot, but
No, this is good.
we realized as business owners, it's really difficult to market and sell yourself when, that's the crowd, to market and sell yourself when you are in the process of running and managing your business, right? So we partnered with another entrepreneur in the Bronx who runs something called Sustainable Snacks to start Taste of the Bronx. And so Taste of the Bronx is a celebration of small Bronx-based businesses. Prior to COVID, it was a monthly pop-up shop, again, following that From The Bronx model where we popped up in culturally significant locations, except this time we were featuring 20 to 25 different vendors. The only requirement is you had to be in the Bronx. Other than that, and you couldn't break any laws. Other than that,
Yeah, I was gonna say.
Yeah. So only a couple more requirements.
Couple
right?
of those, yeah.
And then, so that took off, and we got a really great response from not only the community, but from the vendors that we were working with. And we also introduced the Taste of the Bronx box, which is a quarterly subscription box that goes out nationally and internationally, featuring 5 to 6 businesses on a quarterly basis. Holiday box.
Oh, wow, that's
out
dope.
next week.
But Bronx businesses only, yeah.
But Bronx
strictly
businesses
Bronx
only.
Strictly Bronx, yeah.
So I forget the question, but those are the 4 businesses.
The question was, what are our rules, and how are they determined?
So that's why I stepped back. I wanted you to first know what the businesses are, right? And then the roles, of Mainland Media, I'm CEO. That's, I really am kind of on top of a lot of the financial stuff.
He's what they
in
call
the
the
back
man.
end.
He's the man in the chair. You know what I mean? He's like,
Yeah, petting a cat.
the
But you know,
earpiece
the financial stuff, the calendar, the strategy, and then with Mainland Media, we do a lot of consulting. So I'm also kind of the point person for the consulting and production. So you know, Derek, and he can talk a little bit about the creative directing and the art and design stuff, but bringing his stuff to physical
Fruition.
form
Yeah.
takes some doing. And so
Yes, we've made a lot of crazy things. I've learned a lot how to make T-shirts and.
louder.
Sorry. Yeah, we've made a lot of different items. We're just in charge mostly of apparel and the design and logo designs. But even when we work with all the other companies, I do a lot of logos, pamphlets for like Einstein Medical, different places in the Bronx.
Oh, dope.
So we try to work with a lot of more
Yeah.
Bronx local businesses.
You can't say just.
Well, I mean, mostly.
Yeah,
It sounds so
yeah.
minimizing.
Only. I mean, well, I'm happy.
Not
to do
even
it. It's
only,
great.
just like,
yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, just this is what I do.
Yeah,
Just
sorry,
what
I
This is
didn't
what
mean it in
do.
a negative way. But yeah. So we learned, especially during the pandemic, I learned a lot of production skills, learning how to create things myself from scratch with vinyl cutters and heat pressing and all kinds of crazy stuff.
Mugs,
and now we have
cooking
mugs.
mugs,
Yeah, we've been. It's been an awesome journey, to be honest. And I think all the hard work's been paying off lately. We've been getting a lot of traction and a lot of positive, news and everything. Everybody's loving it. So. That's pretty much my responsibilities most of the time. It's just I'm behind the computer, even more behind him. I'm all the way in the shadows working.
He's got a computer behind my computer.
Yeah, I'm working all the way by myself all the time, making
This might
stuff
be
in the
the only
morning.
chance you get to meet.
Right.
To be honest, it's probably the only time you.
Space.
Yeah. To be honest, I usually do not attend events or anything like that. So yeah, I'm always like,
No, well,
they
we
know you
appreciate-
guys. You guys are good.
Yeah, we appreciate you showing face.
But
Yeah.
yeah, that's
It's
about
true.
it.
You know, for a while I'd be like, I don't need to show up to that, do I? And nowadays I'm like, yeah, you do.
Because now, everybody
Yeah,
show
dude.
up and they're like, "There's a third one." I'm like, yeah, I'm here in the. Yeah,
Yo, that's
what
what
you.
I-
That's what you said when I met you the first time.
Because I met the other brother, right?
You met me the other day.
Oh, that was you.
Yeah, it was me.
the other brother.
It was me.
No, you were my bad.
we went.
Yeah, no, I'm
Yeah,
with
I
her.
know.
We went to the Bronx Dispensary showroom on Friday. Derek and I, just Derek and I.
Yeah.
And I forget homie's name, but I ran into somebody that I know, and he gave me a pound, and I was like, "Oh, this is Derek." He goes, "Oh, I heard from the live from the Bronx guys. Like, you're the third brother." You're the third brother.
Yeah, that's what he said. He's like, I just heard
this.
this.
Yes.
Yeah, he just said it.
Right.
That was the first thing he said. I heard there was a third one.
my-
I was like, what?
Isn't that crazy?
Yeah,
It's
like
like
a-
34
it
years,
was,
this guy.
right. It was Mike from Bronx.
I say I'm
from
Economic, what is it?
Yeah,
BCI,
BCI.
yes,
Yes, that's what it was.
BCI.
Yes.
Right. Yes.
PCBI, which was a client of ours, speaking
Yes.
of consulting, at some point back in the
Yes,
day.
we did.
And we helped develop their name into Bronx Exchange. Yeah, that was
Bronx
a
Exchange,
Yeah,
that's
Bronx
right.
Exchange as well,
consulting client in their very beginning stages, somewhere in the midpoint for us. Right?
Yeah.
somewhere about the
Been a while.
9-year mark for us, 10-year mark.
time.
But
So what's
Yeah,
your
that's-
role, Paul?
Yeah.
I mean, I usually like to go by COO, which is some operation stuff. Obviously, we talk about what happens here. We talk about facilitating background on events, on development for like the Taste of the Bronx spaces, identifying spaces for us to host other events, what happens on the day-to-day in the Bronx Beer Hall.
Vendors, identifying vendors.
Identifying partners. And obviously, with the Bronx Beer Hall being as front-facing as it is and as high visibility within the space, we get a lot of we build a lot of relationships out of this space, and a lot of those relationships lead to very productive business relationships as well. So
Yeah.
that's what we're here for.
It's more than a bar.
It's definitely more than that. Yeah.
There you go.
100%.
It's actually, our tagline, I think, is we have two. One is life is short, drink fast.
Yeah.
And the other one is come on by, you're always welcome.
Right. And that's an open door policy.
I used to say we were like the Bronx Cheers, like the show Cheers
Yes,
back in the
yeah.
day. Yeah.
Where everybody knows
Yeah,
your
because I used to know every single
Where
person that
everybody
came
knows
in
their
here.
name.
And
Everybody
I remember
knows.
I had a table of like 100 kids once, and they tried to test me on all their names, and I knew every single one.
Damn.
And you don't even come
When he says
from-
kids, he means
Yeah,
over
it was-
21.
Yeah, all 20. Yeah, sorry. College. I was older than them, so I say college.
like those people.
Yeah, exactly.
Right,
Like,
exactly.
yeah, here we go. Happy.
Exactly.
Literally, yeah. But it was good times though. It was cool because you make a lot of friends and meet a lot of people. It's pretty cool.
So I have so many questions about a lot of stuff that y'all said. So a good number of people who listen to our show are entrepreneurs or future entrepreneurs.
I'm sorry.
Good luck.
It feels that way sometimes.
You think,
Yep,
yeah,
good luck.
yeah. You think having a day job's hard? Wait till you're your own boss. It's even harder.
So I guess let's stay here a little bit.
Yeah,
Right?
okay.
So y'all alluded to it a little bit, but I guess what were y'all doing right before you made the plunge to go full time? And how did you know it was time to take these creative endeavors and these businesses full time and then leave what it is that you were doing?
I guess I'll start, right? So, Mainland Media came into fruition 16 years ago, we said?
2006.
Right? 2006. I
Are you
was...
doing the math in your head?
I'm doing the math. I'm trying to do the math in my head. I'm just trying to figure out time and place, because now it's been about it's been about 12 years since I left my day job. I was the first person to leave a day job, right? Mainland Media was founded by my brother. I was working at a nonprofit in Hunts Point. I was a deputy director for a nonprofit called Wildcat. We used to do a program in Hunts Point called the Young Adult Internship Program. So we were working with youth that were 14 to 24 years old, people who
You're a youth, Jay.
weren't
20,
in.
look at
Yeah.
Yo, y'all on a roll right now. Okay.
People who weren't in a job setting, weren't in a school setting, needed some way to reconnect, and that's what we did. And working there, you realize that like any nonprofit, there's just like a lot of bureaucratic bullshit. There's a lot of red tape, and there's a lot of things that either maybe stand in the way of you completing your mission to the fullest, or reasons that money and funding gets taken away at the drop of a hat. Right. So, I realized that I had worked with, I want to say 9 cohorts, something like 256 kids. And I had seen them all, move into, at least 25% of them move into job and work settings. And I kind of felt like I was done with having a boss. Right, my brother had this great idea and this great concept, but we weren't in the hood enough. We weren't in the streets enough. The brand From The Bronx as a thing in Mainland, we weren't ringing bells in the corridors of the borough that we needed to ring bells.
We had day jobs.
Because there wasn't enough manpower. So I saw it as an opportunity. They were about to take away $30,000 from our budget at my program. I thought I was doing a noble thing and saying, hey, if I move on, you can still hire one other person, keep $30,000, and have a surplus of $15,000, right? And that's what I'm gonna do. And boom.
That's not how budgets work.
Right.
I was just gonna say.
Thank you. Right? But it was also logically in my mind just a way out. Right?
It does make sense
there was
logically.
something else to do, and by being in Wildcat and being in Hunts Point, I was making a lot of really solid connections to other Bronx nonprofits, also Bronx for-profit groups, and people within the community. So it was kind of all right, we're gonna use these relationships, and these relationships will hopefully get us to the next level. So I quit my day job. We did this thing called I Am the Bronx, right? And it was an out.
Can I stop you
Yeah,
real quick?
sure.
Question. So you said it real I quit my day job. Was there trepidation? Was it just I'm just not gonna do this anymore?
Nah, I'm just not gonna do this anymore.
That's real.
Yeah, I just said I'm
Yeah,
not.
he's good at that.
Yeah, he's good at feeling like that.
Exactly.
I was like, I'm done. Yep, that's cool. Done. Right? So
Cancel cable now.
yeah, and they,
Can't afford anything now.
I'm going back to the full time.
Exactly.
Right, I definitely
I'm moving
was
back
broke
in here, guys.
I was definitely hard broke for a minute, but whatever. I did it. You know what I mean? I took the leap of faith. And I said, this is what's going to happen. And I'm the first that said, this is what's going to happen. And I'm going to try to build this From The Bronx thing. Right? So we did this really large scale event called I Am the Bronx. We took a corridor in Hunts Point, and we partnered with Bronx.
Precinct, the PSA?
No, we
PAL?
partnered with Bronx Court Innovations. I want to say, I forget the exact name of the organization, but essentially what they would do, they were alternative to incarceration programs.
Yeah.
So what they did was they would help kids avoid incarceration by doing community service or community service themed programming. And one of those things was always cleaning up, and then you realize there's some real quality
What
of life.
year is this?
Oof, I don't know.
So I don't mean
2010 maybe.
So all right, so I asked because funny enough. So sorry, don't forget what you're gonna say. I completely interrupted you, but it's funny. I know they launched some initiative like this citywide, where there were about 20 youth who would go to a park site or some sort of
Clean. Yeah.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
So if this is the same thing we're talking about, interestingly enough, and it was I'm 30 now, about to be 31, so it's probably
31?
Yeah.
I thought you were 21.
So-
What happened?
Aging so fast.
It's been a long interview.
That makes
So,
sense, by the way.
but interestingly enough, I was interning with the Department of Probation, and they gave us a site in Bronx, like around Allerton, right?
Okay, yeah.
And Bronx Park East, yeah. So I had 20 young people, and they would come throughout the summer, and they would do, like, I would pretty much work with the recreation center, and we would kind of tell them what they had to do, and I would like supervise them. And I feel like this might be the same.
So it's
program.
similar, definitely in theme. It's,
Or
it's definitely
similar.
100% similar.
Okay.
So what these kids were doing, that they were cleaning up certain corridors of the Bronx, but they realized that, like, you know, these corridors are plagued by quality of life crimes. And how can we make sure that these kids are getting a valuable lesson if every time we take them back to this block, it's exactly the same thing? They're dealing with the exact same problems, from you know, crack vials or needles to you know, to random tagging to trash everywhere, right? So this corridor is right underneath the Whitlock Avenue train stop, 163rd and Whitlock, right here in the South Bronx.
There's
in
still
Hunts
some
Point.
remnants of the what was done.
And what we
over there.
did was that we identified graffiti crews from all over New York City, and obviously Tats Crew was the main focus, but we had them come and pay homage to the Bronx. And they did these entire walls, there was these big walls on Hunts Point that said, "I heart the Bronx," and like there was a photo, an image done by Nicer from Tats Crew that was like the turn in the Whitlock Avenue train stop, because I know, if you know, when the 6 comes above ground, after you hit Whitlock, you hit that full turn that goes over the Bronx River, and like you get to see the Bronx from like a real different perspective, right? So that turn was replicated on a wall, and then there were crews from Queens and from Brooklyn that came and paid homage to like the salsa elements of it all, and we did like a bouncy house for the kids, and we did break dancing. But the idea was like we were funding the I don't want to say not renovation, but the beautification of this one corridor, to kind of ensure that going forward it wasn't going to be plagued by these same quality of life crimes, and that the kids who were participating in the alternative to incarceration program were you know, they were seeing it be fruitful and see it beneficial of being a part of something much larger. And that was first called I Am the Bronx, and we branded it, we marketed it, we partnered, and that was the first thing.
Shirts for it,
that was the first thing that Mainland Media. We got citations from the borough president's office, and like you can look this up. This is right after Carillon, so you know, Ruben Diaz Jr. had just become borough president. You know, and that was our first full-fledged street affair. Like I remember going and talking to Nicer from Tats Crew, and him being like, you from the Bronx? Where in the Bronx you from? Right? And like checking me. And me being like, yo, and like I had to like drop all this BX knowledge on him. And now I could text Nicer like nothing, right? I could go show up at his studio and it's all good, it's all love. But like, you know, real quick to be like, oh, hold on, like we're old school Bronx. Like, who are you? You know, but they've, you know, people started understanding our mission. They started understanding where we're coming from. And they started understanding that there was, you know, these different pockets of people coming up in the Bronx now, these different parts of the next generation and what we stood for, you know. And then from there, we just kept the momentum going until eventually here we are, right?
Until I quit my job.
Yeah, until Anthony decided, all right, now we're making enough money to go. Or now we need enough.
I don't think it's
Now
when I
we
quit.
need enough. Now we need enough hands-on that he has to you know, step away.
So it's funny. So as you were talking about being pressed, Kevin looked at me, and I know exactly what you were thinking of. When we did the Bronx Summit, we were reaching out to get like people to, you know, be our panelists and some of our guest speakers, and we got pressed.
Of course.
Like several times, right? Which we're okay with, right? Because we you know, we
call it,
Because you're from the Bronx.
Yeah, we really from.
If
the
you
Bronx,
weren't, then you'd be
right?
overworried.
So it's like, yeah, come with it, and we appreciated it, right? Because we also knew that you were authentic to the Bronx, right? And that the folks who are pressing us, if they want to be involved with real shit from here, you know, Bronx is changing.
Yeah,
so
100%.
you know, you don't know who you're gonna come across.
100%.
And so at least I always appreciate that, because then now a lot of those folks are same thing in our network.
Yeah.
But yeah, I vividly remember being we done pulled up uptown to like, we were trying to figure out how can we get more of an uptown presence in the Bronx Summit.
Right.
And I done pulled up in certain spots of a host of vendors or whatever, etc. And they're like, yo, why y'all got nobody from uptown in your joint? And I'm like, that's why I'm here. Right? Like, that's why I'm here. You feel me? So,
supposed to do, right?
yeah, which I appreciate because it's important, man. You know, you want to protect, and we're protective of our community.
Yeah.
Right.
So
we should be.
Yeah, we should
You
be.
know?
We should be, and I understand that. So whenever somebody comes at me like that, I don't take it, you know, in a wrong way, or
Right.
like they trying to come at me. I'm like, yo, let's talk.
Right.
Right.
100%.
There
Exactly.
also have been people who, you know, had ill intentions.
Yeah,
So,
you know.
wanna make
So
sure.
yeah, for
course,
sure.
100%.
That's right.
So I want to thinking about your different brands, thinking about what you were just saying about quitting your job and launching the first or hosting the first street fair event, I Am the Bronx, and etc. Where did you get funding for this? Right, like if you're
question.
comfortable with talking like this, talking about this, it's really hard to raise funds for your
Right.
ideas. Like Kevin and I we're in the beginning journeys of our entrepreneurial. And I have a consulting business on the side, so I have some of that experience. But it's consulting, right? It's like you want to work with me, I want to work with you. Here's a project, I got you.
Right.
Boom, here's a check. Here's what I done.
Well,
right?
I usually ask what's your budget first. but
I always actually I ask that too. But the point being, like, it's more of a straightforward conversation, right?
Yeah.
Versus now we're in the process of trying to build a brand and thinking about what are these different models that we can leverage and build. And we've spoken about several.
Yeah.
So
Let's-
if you don't mind just talking about your beginning journeys with trying to raise funds or make money to
hard.
fund your business.
Yeah, sure. So, you know, money's always the thing, right? It's good, and that's something that, which is why I was always working. Right? Like, I was reluctant to quit, knowing that I needed money, I needed to pay rent, I needed to, you know, make money to fund ideas and to do different things. And so, you know, way back when Mainland Media From The Bronx started, the genesis was in the nonprofit work I was doing in youth development. So I was working with, you know, a friend of mine. His name is John, and you know, he also a Bronx guy. And he was just like, you know, I'm trying to decorate my office, and I can't find any Bronx posters. You know, he's like, I could find a Yankee poster, I could find a Bronx Zoo poster, I could find Rumble in the Bronx with Jackie Chan, but I can't find Bronx posters. You know. And so
Where'd they shoot that?
that was in Vancouver, actually.
Canada. Yeah, I was gonna say.
Canada, yeah. If you look right behind the train are mountains.
It's crazy.
So-
It's a backlot in Canada. Yeah. I love that movie though.
I have mixed feelings. Anyway, so you know, over lunch one day, you know, he and I were talking, and he was like, "Yeah, we should make our own Bronx poster. We should just do it."
Yeah.
And so that's how it really started. I looked at him, he looked at me. This was before Google Maps, right? And he was like, "I'm willing to put some money in if you're willing to put some money in." And so together we put in, I think, $2,500 each, $5,000, right? And we rented a helicopter, and we got in the helicopter and took aerial photos of the Bronx, right? Because they didn't exist.
So you
And-
bought? How'd you do this? You bought your own camera?
No, we hired a guy that had a photographer that had a camera
Yeah.
and rented a helicopter.
Okay.
And we had to go to Jersey, I think, to get in this helicopter, and you know, they come flying from Jersey into the Bronx. And what's funny is that, you know, the guy. Well, two things are funny about this. One is that the guy's like, so pictures of the stadium, right? And we're like, no, anything but the stadium. Everyone, pictures of the stadium exists.
like, what else is
right?
there?
Yeah. Right. Yeah, for real. Right? He's like, what? And we're telling, you know, and so they put the headset on you, and like you can only communicate through this headset. And I'm in the back with the photographer, and John was in the front, and the guy slides the door open. He attaches himself to a pole in the middle. He slides the door open, right? And so my stomach just drops, and I'm like, oh, this guy just opened the fucking door, right? And he looks at me, and he's like, taking pictures. Hey, what do you want to capture? And I'm like, hey, is that a digital camera? And he's like, yeah. I was like, just hold the button down. Like, take as many photos as much as you can, and we'll figure it out when we land, right? Because I was terrified and lazy. So we landed, and we saw that the trees haven't necessarily bloomed in March, which is when we went. So we had a lot of amazing aerial photos with dead trees. That sucked because we just spent, you know, I think it cost. We put $5,000 in, but I think it only cost like around $2,000 to do that. We were saving the extra $3,000 to build a website and
Yeah.
print posters and postcards and all that stuff. So that sucked. So then we had to save some more of our lunch money and, you know, figure out a way. Next time we couldn't afford to get the helicopter, but we could afford to get a photographer that was willing to, you know, he was going on a flight and he was willing to take some additional photos. So we still have those postcards to this day, and you know, we saved them. They're more vintage now because you've seen, you know, we got the Hub, City Island, the Bronx County Courthouse, Harlem River, and
City Island. Oh, you said City
I
Island.
said City Island.
Our postcard.
Oh, and then there's Greetings from the Bronx. That was another
Commission.
thing.
That's
Another
extra
commission.
commission.
So, but that's how we got that initial round of money, right? And the idea was, all right, you know what? We're gonna create a website and sell posters, and people are gonna love it, right? Wrong, because you know, we were like, oh, we have to market ourselves. We have to let people know we exist. We have to do this, that, and the other.
Yeah.
So then
And at
we
the
had
time,
to start doing
that was
outreach.
called Just Bronx Posters.
It was called
The
Bronx
first website
Posters.
was Bronx Posters
Yeah.
because we just thought that name would bring people.
Where's
into it.
social media in this timeline? Like
Facebook is about
Instagram
to take off.
isn't existing
Okay.
yet. Yeah.
Okay.
Friendster,
My MySpace page is banging.
MySpace. yeah. I was gonna
Friendster, you know,
We're,
it's for like, you
we're
know,
still doing.
whatever.
You're still chatting on AIM and ICU.
Right.
Okay.
You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
yeah, these are
Yeah. You're
early
gonna date
stages.
yourself. Yeah.
Yeah.
Texting is new.
Right.
I just got to screen names.
being able to send device to device messages.
y'all
was
probably
was a
didn't
new
really even
thing,
know how to
you know?
use sidekicks and stuff back
It was a
then.
T9.
Oh, the
So you know
side-
what
right.
T9 is? Where like
Yeah, yeah.
I had a
niggas
sidekick.
guessing
I'm
the
younger.
word to do it.
Kevin has a
Yeah,
hard
nah.
time learning iPhone, so I understand.
I saw him when he was setting up. I was like,
Yeah.
right? This is not gonna work.
We're talking 2006, right? And like two-way pagers only started in like 2000, 2001. So imagine
No,
the
I had a
side-
two-way pager in
The sidekick.
99.
I thought it was 99. Yeah.
No, when I say two-way, I mean like the Motorola
you go right back to somewhere.
two-way text.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, that was 2000, 2001.
Anyway,
We'll fact check this later.
yeah, we can do a text search later. But the point was that at that point,
Whenever I Just Want to Love You by Jay-Z dropped, and he said, Motorola, two-way page me. That's when that was.
we can check the date on that. So what we did was at that time reach out to the borough president's office and said, hey, and at the time it was the former borough president Adolfo Carrion.
There's two borough presidents ago.
And we said, we have these great posters of the Bronx, these great pictures of the Bronx. You must have some use for them, right? And they were like, oh, we don't know. Like, what are you charging? You guys are kind of, we don't know who you are, and this, that, and the other. But we were able to get some contracts where they used those photos in some events they were putting out, some brochures they were putting out, things like that. Or for the annual gala, I think we were on a cover, and they paid us a fee that then we used to go on to the next thing, right? And if you actually go to the McDonald's over by Lincoln Hospital, if you go in there, we also got a contract to do the first Bronx-themed McDonald's. And if you go in there, we have our posters and pictures all over the walls because the guy that owns it was a proud Bronx guy, and he was like, hey,
Which McDonald's did you say?
That's
the one over by Lincoln
Lincoln
Hospital.
It's on
Okay.
149 and Morris.
Yeah, 149 Morris. So anyway, so the point is that, we were eking our way through, right? And it was coming up with new projects. Okay, we're going to get this, like you said, consulting to fund the next thing, right? We're going to do that to fund the next thing. And we learned a lot back then because we ordered 1,000 posters. We didn't need 1,000 posters, right?
You never, right?
We just needed like 30 at the time. But even the way things were getting produced back then was a different story.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. I get it.
Shout out to those minimums and how they get you, right? It's like, oh, it only makes sense for you, bro, not for me.
Why am I sitting here with 12 extra smalls?
Right, exactly.
And 2 double, triple
Yeah,
XL.
for over
It makes
10
sense for the
years,
producer, not for the.
small.
We are.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Speaking of
Well,
which,
we can do some consulting around that.
Yeah, exactly.
And then we changed our brand.
then we changed our brand, right?
Like
So-
the logo, the website, the
And you're
colors.
stuck with that. Yeah.
Yeah, so
Put it on StockX. That's like old school.
Yeah, exactly.
Give it. Donate it to an
Vintage.
artist that can sew stuff together or something like that. You know.
Yeah, we're gonna talk. We're gonna talk.
Yeah.
Hashtag
So
vintage.
anyway, that was the sort of the beginning, and then obviously Paul came on, eventually Derek came on, and as my goal has always been, we need money in the bank. I gotta make sure we got money in the bank. 1, to feed ourselves and take care of ourselves, but 2, to fund whatever projects we want to do. Our sort of passion, our passion is positive Bronx merchandise, right? It's not consulting.
Yeah.
We like consulting, especially when it's we're at the stage now where we take on projects that mean something to us and are totally aligned with our values. So that's always fun, right? Like we worked on something called the Bronx Salad a couple years ago. That was really to promote healthy eating throughout the Bronx and specifically in the South Bronx, because the Bronx, as we all know, is the least healthy county in all of New York State. But those things sort of, came later on after we were just grinding in the beginning, making money, putting our own money in to fund the next project.
You gotta have a job to have your own money to put in.
Right. You gotta have a job.
That's
right?
right.
Good at
But guess
saving.
what? I had a job that I could print out my letterhead and I could work stay extra hours and use the computer and use the internet, right? And it's always about trying to save as much money. I still have
Use
still
your
have letterheads
resources.
printed out from back then.
Yeah, use your resources. You know what I mean? Like whatever is at your fingertips, like take full advantage of the things that surround you and find ways to maximize use.
And I remember at one point, I was working for the city, and you have to disclose anything you do on the side. And so I do a disclosure, and they're like, "Oh," and the person, my supervisor at the time was like, "Hey, I think you're gonna have to stop doing that because it's a little bit too aligned to what you're doing in the city." And I was like, "Oh, so I'm just gonna quit." And they were like, "What?" And I was like, "Yeah, so I do this to fund this. So if I can't do the thing I'm funding that gives me joy and makes me proud and happy, then I'm just gonna have to leave this
I'm
other
sure they
thing."
didn't see that coming.
Yeah,
Absolutely not. They came back and they're like,
No.
"Oh, we're gonna rethink this." And I'm like, "We rethink it. I'll be here, when you're done."
I be sitting at work.
Finalizing all files on his computer, so you just in
That's
case.
yeah, I be sitting at work. Just earlier today, I was taking a call for some consulting, and I'm like, I don't give a fuck if people hear me or not, right?
Yeah.
Like, whatever. I
Right.
have to take this call.
Yeah.
Right?
Right.
And so people got questions. We can talk about it later on.
Right.
But right now,
Talk
this
about
is
it
just what's happening.
Yeah, bro.
And I'll let Dirk talk a little bit, but the benefit, I guess, for him to being 10
Yeah.
years younger than us is that while he was in school and doing
Yeah, I was
other
in college
things,
for all this.
right? I was working, Paul was working to kind of build this thing up and make
Yeah.
it where a little bit more.
It's crazy.
I joined
Fun.
like a
How
year
long-
after I
long it's
graduated.
been- How
Yeah.
long it's been and how far we've come is crazy.
Yo, man, shout out to y'all. I think one of the things that Kevin and I think are so dope, and I'll speak for you really quickly. Yeah, if you don't mind, no, because I'm going to say
appreciate
this
it.
comment, but I know you appreciate it too. It's just like the beginnings of y'all are seeing the beginning of our journey, and then there's so much we hear from y'all, even from when we first met. And I know Kevin linked up with you, right? And just was like, just getting those gems, because we keep looking at each other and we like, yo, we know that. That's where we are right now. And we're feeling those, and we're feeling that, right? And I just appreciate the gems, because not only is our audience learning from your experiences, but we are,
Right.
right? And
Thank you,
and I take I take notes. Kev, no, we go back to the lab. We don't waste time on this. If somebody's taking time to share information, best believe you will see that information somewhere,
Right.
input somewhere in something we're doing.
Good, and you know what? That's
Smart,
honestly,
bro.
that's why we're here.
That's the
You know,
same thing.
we're supposed to learn from the people who come before us, and we're supposed to learn from.
are.
I'm gonna give you a very clear example.
We are a resource.
All right,
The way that
I love
learned
clear
from y'all.
examples.
So for me, we learn things from people, and I can give you a really clear example of at a time that we were definitely inspired from y'all work. So this is
Oh yes,
The business cards.
yes.
business card.
Yeah, you feel that? You feel that?
So listen.
edge card.
And I'm not
And it's
ashamed-
colored edges.
I'm not ashamed to
You know what? It's so
I'm
peak.
not
So
ashamed to
peak.
admit anything, right? So we were in a meeting with Anthony and Paul.
Yeah.
And
This is the first time we met them.
First time we ever met them. Like I had seen y'all as
a good stock, sir.
I had never met y'all before.
32 points.
I know exactly what it is. Yeah, I know exactly the paper and
I
everything.
can admit when I'm inspired by people, and y'all had the dopest cards I had ever seen.
Thank Derek, he designed them.
The
But yeah.
colored edge, I was like, yo, it had some weight
I don't
to
have
it.
my own.
Right.
I was like, yo, this is the type of card I'm going to remember, and I'm going to want to work with these people in the future.
Right.
Like,
Nice.
it was the dopest card I had seen, and I was like, all right, when we do our cards, we gotta have a
Nice.
color edge.
Nice.
It has to have some
The
weight.
color edge is everything,
I
That's
bro.
the-
appreciate that. I appreciate
And it was
that.
a, and it was
mine's
a game
glitter.
changer. And it's the, and like Jay is definitely all about like branding and stuff like that, which I appreciate about him. But it was, for me, it was like, yo, when I give these cards out, I want people to remember
like
that they got the cards.
like the
I want
QR
them to
code.
I want it to have some weight in their pocket.
Yeah, that's everything
I want
now.
them to
We
be
have to
like,
update
oh,
ours.
these motherfuckers paid attention to detail.
I got my own
And
website, too.
There you go, smart.
Nice.
You put it on the bottom.
It goes to the podcast episodes. But it's
Very
definitely
nice.
something I was inspired by y'all. So I wanted to thank you, and I wanted to wait till we were
Yeah.
on the show to say it.
That's dope.
To say it.
It's cool though.
And
I
let
like
me,
it.
And
I
let
like
me
it.
tell you something. He's dead serious. Like, I was working with the person who was gonna design our business. She same person designed our logo.
Yeah.
Designed our business card. So I'm working with her. And shout out to her. Her name is Deidre. I went to college with her.
Hey, Deidre.
And, yeah. and Kev said, I don't care about what you do with these cards. There needs to be the red
needs to be
color in
printed
the
this
seam. Right? That's he was dead serious. Like, he was like, I don't care about anything else.
But it works with it.
And
Yeah, it works really well.
Because
It
it's
works.
dark colors and the
people
red and
love
gray
it.
work
Like,
well.
I love it.
People
Yeah,
love
I
it.
like it a
so
lot.
That's
Just like
true.
you, when I hand that card to someone,
It's true.
they'll look at me and then they'll grab
no-
one
you
and
know-
they'll literally do this. They'll be like,
You come back, right?
this is a nice card.
card.
That's what
Yeah.
That's the first card.
Yep.
Yeah.
And
That's what it happened a
come
lot
back
the
from
other
an
day.
event and you always have a stack of cards in your pocket, and you take a stack out and like you get this red line, like all of those cards put together, and you're like, oh yeah, I remember that.
I
remember
will
that
say,
one.
if you can
know
see
what
it,
I mean?
our card really the focus. That's Paul's number here. Our card, the focus was
if you Google
obviously
it, it comes
BX
up,
on the
so.
front, right? This is our BX wave design, and Derek
Right,
did.
we went horizontal. We went
And-
entirely vertical, rather.
And then our issue was that every time we told someone what we did, they were like, "Oh, that's a lot to keep track of." We were like, "No, they're all on the back."
Right. And
These are the logos.
the original cards were always just Mainland Media.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, it was
so then
only-
you realize like you have to do.
Yeah.
We have to go down through, because then people will be like, oh wait, like they'll look at your card and they'll be like, wait, what does this guy do again, right? Without remembering like, oh, this is the Beer Hall guy. Oh, this is the From The Bronx merchandise guy.
Yeah.
Oh, these are the consulting guys. So we had to make sure all them logos are this, and then they'd be like, oh yeah, right? Because they may have met me because of From The Bronx, right? Or because of Taste of the Bronx, but just see Mainland Media, that doesn't resonate with them, right? So we had to do
Yeah, it's
that
because
shit.
it's different.
Isn't that
Get
crazy,
that shot,
bro?
Get your cards up.
But the
Yeah, it's
quality-
important. It's very important.
Look at these edges, bro.
Yeah.
Ooh.
And the quality of the card
Hell
is
yeah,
important.
yeah.
It is.
No, it is.
important.
You seen American Psycho?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah,
You know when they all touch the cards and they're like, and he's like freaking out over like one guy's card being a little nicer than
Yeah,
it?
yeah, yeah.
I want
The
everyone
guy-
to freak out when
The
they
guy
touch
got, he got a textured.
Hopefully not killing
He
people,
got.
but-
No.
He
But
got a
If we
textured
inspire you
card.
that much.
He got a textured card. He got a raised font in. You know, this is Christian Bale.
Bale,
What
that's
year
right.
was that? That was early
Batman.
'90s, right?
Yeah.
That was before he was Batman, for
All
sure.
right, so let's crack open this cookie. So obviously we're at the
Let's-
beer hall.
okay.
So we are going
Yes.
to drink beer. So tell us about what we're about to do.
So
Alright.
Paul's about to watch. You do the ASMR thing where you can hear it pop along the, on the microphone here.
They're
Like that, right? Yeah.
So,
rewind,
this is-
rewind for a better hit.
This is a beer that we recently brewed in collaboration with Gun Hill Brewing Company and Gold Award-winning coquito maker Fancy Coquito, all Bronx businesses. And it's called Puerto Rockin' Noggin Coquito Stout. And one thing I want to point out that a lot of people say online, like, oh, it's Coquito's not eggnog. Why is noggin in there? It's Rockin' Noggin. This is a 10% ABV stout. It will rock you. Okay, your
Wow,
noggin, your
10%.
noggin, right?
But it's Puerto Rican eggnog, right? Because eggnog is something that people drink in
Yeah.
Christmas, and coquito is inherently something that you drink in the holiday season in Puerto Rico, right? So, obviously, coquito is made with cinnamon, coquito is made with coconut, which is in the name, and of course, rum. So this is coconut forward, touch of cinnamon, guaranteed. It was rum barrel aged, and it comes in at 10% alcohol.
Strong.
So the only
Yeah,
difference,
his face.
the only difference between this and
Thanks.
here you go, gentlemen. The only difference between this and an actual glass of coquito is that it's not white, right? And this is our third iteration, so this is actually year 3 for this, 2022.
Version
And this
3.0,
is version
yeah.
3.0.
Gets better every
And
year.
Yes.
Salud.
And this is definitely the closest version to a coquito that's more palatable for coquito drinkers.
Oh, this is good.
This is
I
good.
taste the cinnamon.
You taste the cinnamon, you taste the coconut on the upfront. It's malty, right? So it tastes
is
like
good.
tastes a little chocolatey, but you get the smokiness.
It's a
from
nice,
the
like,
rum.
relaxed beer. Like, you know, by the
It's
fire.
It's easy to
It's
drink.
a nice
You let
Christmas
that-
beer.
You let that,
And it'll slowly sneak up on you. That's why you
It's
slowly
10%
take your time
alcohol.
with
You let
it.
let that sit on the back of your tongue, and all of a sudden,
You
like
sit.
all those other flavors start coming up, right? And like previously, you know, we've made the previous iterations of this have been more beery than anything, but this one really hits when it comes to like, because you know, your Puerto Ricans want to be like, well, this is Coquito's not black, right? Coquito's not this, Coquito, and you're like, oh, like, you know, obviously there's a Puerto Rican flag in it, so it sells regardless, right? But people like now, you definitely taste it and like, wow, this tastes like Coquito.
I think the point is that it's version 3.
Yeah.
We are always striving to improve and change things, right? Everything evolves, right? Our logos have evolved, our merchandise have evolved, we have evolved, our businesses have evolved, and this is only going to get better every year. We have been toying around with working to change the color. Who knows what next year's version will look like? But for now, as Paul mentioned, last year, if you're not a beer drinker, you would drink it and be like, this is a little too strong, it doesn't taste like Coquito. Now it's super drinkable for people who enjoy beer and people who
it's good.
never, ever drink beer.
Just remember, if you're drinking this fast, you might end up on the floor. What is it? What
A rock
Life
your
is
noggin.
short. Life
Gonna
is
rock
short.
your
Rock
noggin.
your noggin.
But life is short, so drink fast. Bro.
Yeah.
But life is short, so in the end, drink fast. So, gentlemen, we just want to thank you for kicking it with us. This has been dope. We appreciate y'all allowing us to come to y'all space.
Thank you.
And
Thanks for having us. Thanks for visiting.
Definitely. And we're not gonna let you go yet. One more thing we like to do is a game that we like to play called Rapid Fire. All right. So here's how this works, right? So we have, I think we have a few more than 5 questions. I think we have 6 questions today. And here's how this is going to work. So Jay is going to read the question and what you are going to do, right? You're going to give us the answers as quick as you can without giving too much thought, too many words.
So
right?
It's like Family Feud.
Oh, indeed. And we got a family here.
right, you do got a family. Are the questions? Are we going to answer each of the questions? Are we each going to answer one of the questions, or
Right. Good question. Yeah. Good. Yeah. Or you're gonna hit one of us.
Are you going to
Like,
hit
you
us
answer
each
this
with
one. You
different
answer that one.
questions? Yeah.
Yeah. All right. So I think we'll do it. I think we'll do it this way, right? I think what we do is for the first 3, I think we need to have a consensus answer.
So we have to agree to it.
Yeah, I think we need
Okay.
a consensus answer for the first 3 questions.
Yeah, and it'll make sense when I read
And
it.
it'll make
Oh, I read them. I already know.
Hey, that's good. Edit that out. Edit that part out.
Edit.
And I think for the other 3, they
Yeah.
each answer.
3, 2, 1.
Or you can pick. You can point to one.
Since there are another 3, each
one, each
person.
person.
Yeah,
Perfect.
yeah, yeah.
All right, cool.
So then at that point, I'll tap you.
all right, so for the
Okay.
first 3,
Oh, right.
first 3 we need
in
a
this-
consensus answer.
in
Last
this-
3, he'll tell you who's answering.
So we'll do
In
like
this-
this, and we'll talk about it, and then someone will give the answer.
So
No.
Say it at the same time. Yell it
we
out.
guys shout it out at the same time, all 3 of us.
Whatever comes to y'all mind, say that shit.
Word. All right.
But then that leads to.
It's okay.
All right. Let's do it.
Great. All right, so Ramirez Brothers, are you ready? Y'all not ready.
I'm as ready as I can. We're ready.
All right, Jason, are you ready?
Of course.
All right, rapid fire, let's do it.
Who is the person that is most likely to lose their cool over a rude customer?
Me.
Derek.
Yeah.
Of the 3 of y'all, who is the big ideas person?
Anthony.
Okay.
Of the 3 of you, who is the most behind the scenes? Derek.
Me.
So we
Derek.
got that.
Yeah.
I'm gonna have to change.
You
I'm gonna
knew
have to
that
change
one.
that.
Yeah.
Yeah, because we got it. We
Yeah.
got it. We got it. And so I'm gonna come up with something off the top of my head after.
Ah.
Okay.
Oh, even worse.
So in this next round, I'm going to ask
Each of us.
each one of you a question. First answer that comes to your mind, you answer.
Okay.
We're gonna start with Derek. What is your favorite restaurant to eat in the Bronx?
Oof, that's a hard one. I like a lot of places.
Favorite?
My favorite that I actually go to consistently would be Frankie and Johnny's right now. The Pine Tavern, I think it's
yeah,
called
yeah,
Pine.
yeah,
They changed the name of it. Yeah.
FJ Pine.
FJ
Yeah,
Pine.
FJ
That's what it's
Pine,
called.
that's
Yes.
it.
That place. Yeah, they have a great.
We're gonna go, Paul. If you haven't been to the Bronx, what is one location that you would recommend someone to go to for amazing beer? That's not the Bronx Beer Hall.
For amazing beer,
Yeah.
the Bronx Ale House.
Yeah.
That's a good answer.
Yeah.
Anthony, what is one word to describe the Bronx?
Authentic.
Boom. Okay, that's it. Rapid fire.
Easy. I thought you were gonna come out with.
Just got one more for the.
It's not.
Off the top of we can keep going.
All right, cool.
What's your favorite Pokemon? Is that what you got?
I don't even know.
I don't know. Yeah,
What
Pikachu.
what is your favorite all-time favorite sports team? Any sport.
I mean, the New York Yankees. Bro.
Yeah.
Everyone?
That's kind of got to be the, you know.
No, it
Yeah,
doesn't
I,
have to.
I went to Yankee games. Yeah, my whole life, so it's kind of like
All right.
Knicks or whatever. I've been to that
But
too.
we're also
I stopped
Boricua.
watching
Obviously,
basketball
we're
in
also
96.
Boricua. So a lot of our
Mets,
and
too.
the elders in our family are devout Met fans.
Yeah.
You know,
Like,
Oh my God.
Loyal.
my
Optimist, we call them.
grandfather, my grandfather, my
Yeah.
my uncles,
Everybody.
like my cousins, Mets, Jets.
Mets and
Mets
Jets.
and
Mets and Jets.
Jets.
Those
You
two.
guys
are-
That's the combo.
Do you know how optimistic you have to be every season?
Yeah, that's the
to watch
combo,
the
though.
Mets and the Jets and be like, yeah, this is our year. You know how optimistic you have to be.
Yeah, they're-
In a way,
I
that's
It's like
you know,
Knicks fans. Like, you got Knicks fans.
Yeah, Knicks fan.
That's
No.
pretty bad.
That's
There
why.
was a while when the Knicks were pretty good.
I was gonna say you stopped watching the Knicks in
96. Yeah,
That was a bad
that was
time to
the.
stop watching.
They were good
it
then.
Was, it was the Knicks Rockets. They kept giving the ball to
Chicago.
Starks. Starks kept missing it, and at the end they lost that game. And I stood up and I looked at Paul. I said, "I'm never watching a fucking basketball game again." And that was actually the same night.
The '90s Knicks.
It was the
I was
same.
just gonna say.
Yeah, I
It was
love
the
that.
same
Viewing,
night.
no?
That was the time to do it.
It was the same night OJ was in the Bronco and driving away, and they kept switching between the game and OJ.
shit.
And I was like, I don't care what happens to OJ.
And
Like,
that's
it's
why.
not my problem.
And that's
right?
why Stark's game was off.
That's. You guys, I stood up
He was
and
worried
looked
about
at
his
him, and I was
boy.
like,
He was worried about his
done.
boy.
No more basketball for me, except for NBA Jam. You know, I make things up.
I still play NBA Jam. I
NBA
still
Jam.
play NBA Jam.
That's what y'all need to hear.
On the
Arcade.
Xbox.
We actually were thinking. We
Yeah.
talked
I
about
tell
it.
them all the time, man.
Right there, right
All
in the
the time.
center.
We actually went to some events by the Bronx Gaming Network. I don't know
Oh
if you know those guys
yeah,
are.
my guy Rudy.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Rudy and Ray and,
Ray, yeah.
and you know, we're talking about doing something here too.
Shout out Bronx Gaming Network.
Yeah,
Yeah.
go.
shout out to them.
Yep.
All right. So, gentlemen, thank you for kicking it with us. I just wanted to take the time on behalf of Live from the Bronx to thank you for taking this time to give us Coquito
Yeah.
and
Oops,
chill with
I think
us
her-
and drop a lot of
Salute,
gems
salute. Yeah.
and show your dope business cards.
Yeah. Cheers,
It's a
cheers.
lot of fun on a Tuesday night.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Appreciate
Cheers.
it.
Oh, this guy got an empty
Derek.
cup. Damn, bro.
Ramirez Brothers.
Here.
No,
Ready to
no.
go.
we're-
Yeah.
Live from the Bronx.
I already feel it.
All day.
DX all day, baby.
Be out here and slurring my words because Coquito is really.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you.